I was driving home that late spring evening, the sun dipping low over the fields, casting long shadows on the quiet road. My hands gripped the steering wheel tight after a brutal day at the office, endless meetings, and a boss who wouldn't stop yelling. The windows were cracked open, letting in the warm breeze, mixed with the scent of blooming wildflowers. Then, out of nowhere, a thud hit my car hood. My heart jumped into my throat as I slammed the brakes. A lynx, wild, ragged, with piercing yellow eyes, stared right at me through the windshield, a dead cub dangling from her jaws. Her fur was matted, her breathing heavy, and those eyes, they weren't just looking. They were begging. I froze, my mind racing. This wasn't some stray cat. This was a predator, a real lynx, right there on my beat-up sedan. I glanced around, half expecting it to leap inside, but then I saw movement in the bushes. 2 tiny lynx cubs, their fur patchy and wet, stumbled out, mewling weakly. My chest tightened. They were alive. Barely, but the mother's cub in her mouth wasn't. She dropped it on the hood, a raw, heartbreaking thud, and let out a low, guttural cry. I didn't know what to do. My hand shook on the wheel. Part of me screamed to drive away, call animal control, let someone else handle this mess. But then I remember my brother, Jake, 2 years gone now, his last days in that hospital bed, his eyes pleading for me to stay. I couldn't save him. Maybe I could save these cubs. I stepped out, my sneakers crunching on the gravel. The lynx didn't move, just watched me, her ears flat. I edged toward the bushes, my heart pounding so loud I thought she'd hear it. The cubs were shivering, one dragging a limp leg. I grabbed an old blanket from the back seat, wrapped them up quick, and scooped them into my arms. They felt so small, so fragile. The mother let out another cry, louder this time, and I turned to see her pacing the hood, her eyes locked on me. I didn't know if she was threatening or thanking me. I slid back into the car, cubs on the passenger seat, and started the engine. As I pulled away, her howl pierced the air, echoing through the empty road. I glanced in the rearview mirror. Her silhouette faded into the dusk, but that sound stuck with me. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The drive home was a blur. My mind spun with what-ifs. What if she followed me? What if the cubs didn't make it? I lived alone in a small house on the edge of town, no neighbors close enough to hear me scream. When I pulled into the driveway, the cubs whimpered, their tiny bodies trembling under the blanket. I carried them inside, setting them on the kitchen table. The house felt too quiet, too still, like it knew something big was happening. I grabbed my phone, scrolling for advice, milk, warmth, a vet. But the nearest vet was 30 minutes away, and it was past 6. I left a message, my voice shaky, and turned to the cubs. One had its eyes half open, the other just lay there, barely moving. I rummaged through the fridge, found some milk, and warmed it on the stove. No bottles, so I used a syringe from an old first aid kit. The stronger cub sucked at it greedily, but the weaker one barely responded. I stroked its fur, whispering nonsense, trying to will it to live. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. I thought I heard a scratch at the door, but when I checked, nothing was there. Just my imagination, or maybe the mother, watching from the shadows. I sat there, syringe in hand, the cub's faint breaths the only sound. Tomorrow would tell if I'd made the right choice, or if I'd just brought trouble home. It was well past 7 by the time I settled the lynx cubs on my kitchen table, their tiny bodies still wrapped in that old blanket. The house smelled like warm milk and damp fur, and my hands wouldn't stop shaking from the adrenaline of the drive. The stronger cub was moving a bit more, nudging its sibling with a weak paw, but the other one, the one with the limp leg, just lay there, eyes barely open, breathing so shallow I had to lean in to hear it. I'd already left a message for the vet, but his voicemail said he wouldn't be in until tomorrow morning. Tomorrow felt like a lifetime away. I grabbed my laptop, searching for anything that could help. Raising lynx cubs at home, big mistake, the internet screamed. They needed special formula, not cow's milk, but I didn't have that. I kept scrolling, my heart sinking with every word. Hypothermia, dehydration, infection. The list of things that could go wrong was endless. I glanced at the cubs, their fur so thin I could see their ribs. I had to do something now. I warmed more milk, filled the syringe again, and tried feeding them. The stronger one latched on, sucking down a few drops, but the weaker one wouldn't even open its mouth. I rubbed its back gently, like I'd seen in some video, whispering, "Come on, little guy, you've got to eat." Its tiny body felt colder than before. The clock ticked louder than it ever had, each second stretching out painfully. I wrapped a hot water bottle in a towel and tucked it under the blanket to keep them warm. The stronger cub nestled closer, but the weaker one didn't move. My chest ached as I watched them. I couldn't lose another one, not after seeing their mother with that dead cub on my car. I thought of Jake again, how I'd sat by his hospital bed, helpless, watching him slip away. I shook my head, trying to focus. These cubs weren't Jake. I could still save them. A sharp knock at the door jolted me upright. My heart raced as I set the syringe down, wiping my hands on my jeans. Who'd come by this late? I peeked through the window and saw Tom, my neighbor from across the street, standing on my porch. He was a gruff guy, always complaining about noise or parking, and the last person I wanted to deal with right now. I cracked the door open, forcing a smile. "Hey Tom, what's up?" He frowned, his eyes darting past me into the house. "I heard some weird noises, Emma. You got a cat in there or something?" It sounded like, I don't know, something wild. His voice had an edge, like he was already suspicious. I swallowed hard, my mind scrambling. "Yeah, just a stray cat I found. She's a little upset, that's all. I'm taking care of it." The lie felt heavy on my tongue, but I couldn't tell him the truth, not yet. Tom crossed his arms, staring at me a little too long. "Right. Well, keep it down. Some of us are trying to sleep." He turned to leave, but his steps were slow, like he was still listening. I shut the door, my hands trembling as I locked it. I didn't trust him. He'd always been nosy, and I couldn't risk him poking around. Back at the table, the cubs were still breathing, barely. I sat down, running a hand through my hair, trying to think. I needed a plan. Maybe I could drive to a 24-hour pet store, get some proper formula. But leaving them alone felt too risky. I was stuck, and the weight of it pressed down on me like a stone. I looked at the weaker cub, its tiny chest rising and falling so faintly. "Hang on," I whispered, more to myself than to them. "Just hang on until morning." Then, another knock, louder this time, more insistent. My stomach dropped. I glanced at the clock, almost 9. Tom wouldn't come back this soon, would he? I stood, my legs shaky, and moved to the window. A shadow loomed outside, too tall to be Tom. My throat tightened as the knocking turned into a pounding. Whoever it was, they weren't leaving. And I had a sinking feeling this was about to get a lot worse. The pounding on my door didn't stop, and my stomach twisted into knots as I edged closer to the window. The shadow outside shifted, revealing a man in a green uniform. Wildlife Control, the patch on his sleeve read. My breath caught. Tom must have called them after all. I glanced back at the kitchen table where the lynx cubs lay, the stronger one twitching slightly, the weaker one still too still. I had seconds to decide. I smoothed my hair, took a deep breath, and opened the door just enough to peek out. The guy was tall, maybe 40, with a clipboard in hand and a stern look. "Evening, ma'am. I'm Officer Daniels with Wildlife Control. We got a report about unusual animal noises coming from here. Mind if I take a look inside?" His voice was calm but firm, leaving no room for argument. I forced a laugh, my palms sweaty. "Oh, it's just a stray cat I picked up. She's a little noisy, that's all. I can handle it. Please, it's late. Can we do this tomorrow?" My heart hammered as I tried to block his view, but he stepped forward, his boots heavy on the porch. "I'm afraid that won't work," he said, glancing past me. "State law requires immediate inspection if there's a concern about protected species. If you're hiding something, it could mean a fine, or worse." He tapped his clipboard, his eyes narrowing. Panic surged through me. I couldn't let him see the cubs. Not yet. I thought of Jake, how I'd fought for every minute with him, begging the doctors for more time. These cubs deserve that fight too. "Hold on," I said, raising a hand. "Give me a second to calm her down. I'll bring her out." I shut the door in his face, my hands trembling as I grabbed the blanket with the cubs. The stronger one squirmed, but the weaker one stayed limp. I bolted to the basement stairs, my feet slipping on the wood. The basement was cold, cluttered with old boxes, but it'd have to do. I set them behind a stack of crates, praying they'd stay quiet. I was halfway back up when a sharp squeak cut through the silence. The stronger cub, its tiny cry echoed up the stairs. My heart sank. I turned, but it was too late. Officer Daniels pushed the door open, stepping inside. "I heard that," he said, his voice hardening. "That's no house cat. Show me what's down there, now." I stood frozen, my mind racing. "Please," I begged, my voice cracking. "They're just babies. Their mother's gone, and they'll die without help. I need time to get them to a vet." My eyes stung as I thought of Jake's last breath, how I'd failed him. I couldn't fail these cubs too. Daniels crossed his arms, unmoved. "Ma'am, if those are lynx cubs, you're breaking the law keeping them here. They're wild animals, not pets." But he paused, studying me. "I'll give you until morning to arrange proper care. After that, I'm coming back with backup." He scribbled something on his clipboard and left, the door slamming behind him. I sank against the wall, my legs weak. The basement stairs creaked as I hurried down, finding the cubs still hidden. The stronger one was quieter now, nestled against its sibling, but the weaker one's breathing was fainter. I scooped them up, rushing back to the kitchen. I needed help, someone who knew what to do. I grabbed my phone, scrolling for Lisa's number. She'd worked with wild animals before. Maybe she could save them. The clock read 10:30. I dialed, my fingers shaking, praying she'd pick up. The line rang, and just as I thought it'd go to voicemail, her voice came through, groggy but there. "Lisa, it's Emma. I need you. It's bad." She sighed, but I could hear her shifting, waking up. "What's going on?" she asked. "I've got lynx cubs," I whispered, glancing at the door. "Their mother left them, and wildlife control's on my case. One's dying, and I don't know what to do. Can you help?" A long pause. Then, "Okay, Emma. I'll be there at dawn. Keep them warm and don't let anyone else in." Her tone was serious, and it gave me a sliver of hope. I hung up, looking at the cubs. Dawn felt too far, but it was all I had. I sat there, stroking their fur, listening for any sound outside. The night stretched on, heavy with the weight of what I'd started, and the help I desperately needed. Dawn broke gray and heavy, the sky outside my kitchen window churning with clouds by 6 in the morning. I hadn't slept, just sat there with the lynx cubs, feeding the stronger one more milk every hour, its tiny tongue lapping weakly at the syringe. The weaker one, though, its breathing had grown fainter overnight. I held it close, my fingers brushing its fur, willing it to hold on until Lisa got here. But as the first light crept in, its chest stopped moving. I pressed my ear to it, hoping for a heartbeat, but there was nothing. A sob broke out of me, loud and raw, echoing in the quiet house. I clutched it to my chest, tears streaming down my face, seeing Jake's pale face in my mind. 2 years ago, that hospital room, the flatline beep. I'd failed him. Now I'd fail this cub too. I laid it gently on the table, wrapping it in the blanket, my hands shaking. The stronger cub whimpered, nudging its dead sibling, and I couldn't stop crying. I had to move, had to save the one left. I called Lisa again, my voice thick. "It's Emma. One cub's gone. The other's still alive, but barely. Can you come now?" She answered quick, her voice steady. "I'm on my way. Meet me at the rehab center. It's their best shot. Bring the survivor." I nodded, even though she couldn't see, and grabbed my keys. The drive started rough. Rain started pouring by 7, hammering the windshield as I sped toward the center 30 miles away. The cub sat in a box on the passenger seat, wrapped in a towel, its eyes half open. I kept one hand on the wheel, the other checking its pulse, my foot pressing the gas harder. The road turned slick, tires hydroplaning on a curve, and I gripped the wheel tighter, praying I wouldn't crash. My phone buzzed, Lisa texting the address, but I couldn't look. The wipers couldn't keep up, and the world outside blurred into a wet mess. Then a grinding noise. The engine sputtered, and the car jerked to a stop on the shoulder. I slammed my hands on the steering wheel, cursing under my breath. The rain soaked through my jacket as I popped the hood, but I didn't know a thing about engines, just saw steam hissing out. The cub mewed weakly from inside, and I climbed back in, slamming the door. I held it close, rocking back and forth, the rain pounding the roof like a drum. We were stuck, miles from anywhere, and time was running out. I tried my phone, no signal. My chest tightened as I thought of the officer coming back, of losing this cub too. Hours dragged by, the rain not letting up. I kept the cub warm with my body heat, feeding it the last drops of milk from the syringe. Its eyes fluttered, and I whispered, "Stay with me, little one. You've got to make it." The guilt ate at me. Jake's death, this cub sibling, all piling up. I was about to give up when headlights pierced the downpour, a car slowing on the road. My heart leapt. Help, maybe. But then I froze. What if it was Daniels, coming to take the cub away? I ducked lower, holding my breath, the cub trembling in my arms. The vehicle stopped, its lights blinding me through the rain-streaked glass. A door creaked open, and footsteps splashed closer. I didn't know if this was salvation or the end. The footsteps outside my broken-down car grew louder, rain splashing with each step, and I held the cub tighter, my breath shallow. The driver's door creaked open, and a familiar voice cut through the storm. "Emma, it's Lisa. Thank God you're okay." I nearly sobbed with relief as her face came into view, soaked but determined. She climbed in, her jacket dripping, and took one look at the cub. "Let's move," she said, grabbing the box. I nodded, grabbing my bag, and we dashed to her truck. The rain pounded us as we piled in, and she peeled out, the cub's weak mules filling the cab. The rehab center was 20 minutes away, and Lisa drove like she was racing time. She kept glancing at the cub, her hands tight on the wheel. "Hang in there, little guy," she muttered. I stared out the window, the guilt gnawing at me, the dead cub, the mother's howl, Jake's memory. When we got there, a team was waiting. They whisked the cub inside, hooking it to fluids, checking its vitals. Lisa stayed with me, her hand on my shoulder. "You did good getting it this far," she said. I wanted to believe her, but my chest felt hollow. Was giving it up the right move? What if the mother was still out there looking for it? Hours later, a vet came out, smiling faintly. "It's stable. We'll keep it here, raise it until it's strong enough to release." I nodded, a weight lifting, but another settling in. I thanked them, hugged Lisa, and drove home in her truck, the rain finally easing. The house felt empty without the cubs, the kitchen table bare. I cleaned up, threw out the blanket, and tried to sleep. But the mother's eyes haunted me, those pleading, wild eyes. A week later, on a sunny Friday afternoon, I drove back to that same road. The wildflowers were in full bloom, the air warm and thick. I parked where it happened, stepping out to look around. My heart skipped when I saw her, the lynx, sitting by the bushes, her fur cleaner now, her gaze locked on me. She didn't move, just stared, her ears twitching. I froze, unsure if she'd attack or run. Was she thanking me for saving one cub? Or blaming me for taking them, for losing the other? I wanted to say something, to explain, but words felt useless. I stood there, the silence stretching, her eyes boring into mine. Finally, I turned back to the car, my legs heavy. I'd done what I could, fought for those cubs, faced the law, braved the storm. The rehab center would handle the rest. As I drove away, I glanced in the mirror. She was still there, watching, a shadow against the green. I didn't know if I'd see her again, or if she'd ever forgive me. Back home, I sat on the porch, the evening light fading, feeling a mix of peace and doubt. I'd helped one life survive, but the questions lingered. Had I done enough? Was she out there, waiting for her cub to come back? I leaned back, letting the breeze carry my thoughts, knowing I'd carry this story forever.